All right, today we're diving into a true ancient superpower. We're talking about an empire that totally dominated the world stage and really shaped history, long before some of the other big names you might think of. This is the story of the incredible Persian Empire.
So, let me ask you something. When you think of the greatest empire of the ancient world, what pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably Rome, right? But what if I told you there was another, much earlier empire that was just as, if not more, influential in its day? Yep, we're talking about Persia. Think about that. For 228 years, the Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire, was pretty much the biggest force on the planet. From 559 all the way to 331 BCE, it was setting the standard for what a global power could even be. And the scale of it? It was just staggering.
And just to give you an idea of how massive this thing was, at its peak, the empire stretched across the lands we now call Iran, Egypt, Turkey, and even parts of Afghanistan and Pakistan. This wasn't just a kingdom, it was a vast, multicultural powerhouse.
So our story follows this really classic arc, a brilliant rise to power, a super stable peak, and then the eventual decline and fall. And we're going to meet the three key rulers who defined these eras. Cyrus the Great, the guy who started it all, Darius the Great, the master organizer, and Xerxes the First, who, well, he oversaw the beginning of the end.
Let's kick things off right at the beginning with the man who built this empire from the ground up, Cyrus the Great. But here's the thing, he wasn't your typical run-of-the-mill ancient conqueror. No, his method for building an empire was, well, it was completely revolutionary for its time.
So back in 559 BCE, Cyrus conquers the neighboring Median Empire and becomes the first Shah, which is just the Persian word for king. This is the official birth of the Achaemenid dynasty, and believe me, Cyrus wasted no time earning that title, the Great.
And this is where you can really see how different he was. I mean, look at this. The playbook for most ancient rulers was pretty simple. You conquer a place, you destroy it, you force your culture on everyone, and you rule with an iron fist. But Cyrus? He just threw that whole playbook out the window. He conquered and spared. He let people keep their own customs and religions. He chose mercy over fear.
And get this was his secret sauce. Instead of just executing a king he defeated, he'd keep him around as an advisor. Just think about that for a second. It's an incredibly smart way to make sure the transition is smooth and to figure out how to actually govern the people you just conquered. This wasn't just about being a nice guy. It was brilliant politics.
Okay, next up we have Darius the First. Now, if Cyrus was the great conqueror who built the empire, Darius was the great organizer who made it work. He took this huge territory Cyrus had won and turned it into a smooth, efficient, well-oiled machine of a superpower.
So, how in the world did he do it? Well, he broke it down. First, he split the massive empire into smaller, manageable provinces. Smart. Then he put loyal governors in charge of them. And here's the game changer. He set up an official postal service. This was basically the ancient world's version of high-speed internet. It let him send messages and orders across his huge domain with incredible speed. It was the nervous system of the empire. And finally, he invested in the future.
And that investment was absolutely key. See, each province paid a tribute, kind of like a tax, to the main government. But Darius didn't just squirrel this money away in a vault. He poured it right back into the empire, funding huge public works projects. We're talking roads and canals that connected everybody, boosted trade, and made the whole empire more prosperous.
But you know how these stories go. No empire lasts forever. The decline really started under Darius' son Xerxes. This is where things take a turn. A combo of some really bad military decisions and poor judgment at home started to unravel everything his father had worked so hard to build. You can literally see the empire's bank account draining right here. Xerxes inherited a treasury that was totally full, but then he launched this hugely expensive and ultimately failed invasion of Greece that just wiped it out. And his crazy spending back home didn't help, leaving the empire on the brink of financial collapse.
And that's what it really boiled down to. This disastrous war in Greece, combined with all that wild spending, created a financial black hole that just sucked the strength out of the empire from the inside out. It created this fatal weakness.
And that kind of weakness, well, it doesn't go unnoticed. A young, super ambitious king over in Macedonia saw his chance. And starting in 334 BCE, a fragile Persian empire fell to the armies of none other than Alexander the Great. And that was the end of the Achaemenid dynasty.
But here's the thing. The end of the empire wasn't the end of its story. Not by a long shot. Its ideas about administration, infrastructure, and culture echoed for centuries. What Persia left behind is so much more than just a pile of ruins in the same.
In fact, you can literally go and see the heart of this ancient superpower today. The incredible ruins of its capital, Persepolis, are still standing in modern-day Iran, and they are so important to our shared human history that they've been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a real, tangible link to this amazing civilization.
Which brings us to one last thing to think about. The Persian Empire, especially under Cyrus, gave the world a model of how to govern based on tolerance and mercy. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How different would our world history be if that revolutionary idea had become the rule instead of the exception?